a professional workshop for screenwriters and scriptwriters hosted by Olisa Agbakoba Legal. And we're thrilled to see you here again, and we're ready for another insightful time of learning and creative exploration. We hope you had the chance to digest valuable knowledge from our speakers yesterday, Mr. Ayodele Elegba and Mr. Xavier Igoroje. The training on storyboarding, animatics, and character developments were very insightful, and we believe gave several people like loads of tools they can use and inspire them in their career work. A quick reminder, Olisa Agbakoba Legal is a leading law firm in Nigeria. We're dedicated to supporting the creative community, and we understand the unique challenges and opportunities screenwriters and scriptwriters were facing. So we decided to come up with this initiative, and we're ready to help in any way we can, with guidance and resources to ensure that we navigate the industry navigate the industry effectively. And we're excited to continue today's journey as we explore scriptwriting and screenwriting through our speaker today. I believe we can all see our beautiful face on the screen, Miss Nicole, and we encourage you to ask several questions, as many as you can, actively participate during the discussions, network when it's time to, and we believe that today's session will provide you with the final pieces to the puzzle you need to unlock your potential. So on behalf of Olisa Agbakoba Legal, we declare the second day of Between the Lines open. So welcome, everyone.
So once again, welcome everyone. Good morning and welcome to day 2 of Between the Lines. Just like my colleague Adedoja has already said, Between the Lines is a professional workshop for screenwriters and script writers with an extended target audience to manuscript writers, creatives, talent, entertainment lawyers, songwriters, and other relevant creative stakeholders. And we had the first day of day 1 of this professional workshop yesterday with 2 major topics and 2 major speakers. We had Mr. Ayodele Elegba, who actually spoke on storyboarding and animatics, and we have Mr. Xavier yesterday, an interesting section, by the way, and he mostly spoke on character design and character development. We had a lot of questions. It was an interesting and engaging section. We have to thank you all for that. So this is day 2, which is the last day, and we have our first speaker for today. We have 2 speakers today, actually. We have a male and our very own a male. If we have a female and our very own a male. So for the first speaker, we have the beautiful Ms. Nicole Asinogu. She's here already. She's here already, and she's going to be talking on how to tell a compelling story, a particular section that I'm dying to actually, and I'm looking forward to, how to tell a compelling story. And just like my colleague has already encouraged, we encourage that people put their questions in the questions and answer chat box of the Zoom platform. And after a section, we'll take the questions, and when it is time for networking, we'll announce that. And then, so not to just take so much of your time, I want to call on my associate colleague Adedoja to read the bio of our very own Miss Nicole Asinogu. And trust me, the very voice you'll be hearing after the reading of the bio will be no other than, like I said, our very own beautiful Miss Nicole Asinogu. Adedoja.
All right. So this is the bio of Nicole Asinogu. Nicole, a visionary multidisciplinary creative, has sculpted an extraordinary path, mastering the art of storytelling across diverse realms: advertising, editorial, policy, and film. As a storyteller for Expo 2020 Dubai, she crafted immersive exhibition experiences for over 10 countries, leaving an indelible impact on countless hearts and minds. A recent stewardship at COP28 as content manager for Ethiopia's Green Legacy exhibition showcased her ability to merge narratives with urgent global issues, driving tangible change. In her role as a creative consultant for Global Citizen, Nicole shapes moments of impacts, scripting on stage talents for festivals in Accra, Paris, and New York, where music and activism converge to ignite social movements. Nicole's screenwriting prowess is unparalleled. A debut for Living in Bondage, Breaking Free, clinched the prestigious Best Screenplay Award at the 2020 African Magic Viewers' Choice Awards. Her second feature, Rattlesnake, the Ahana story, not only earned critical acclaim, but also a commercial success. Both films currently captivating audiences on Netflix. Recognizing storytelling's unparalleled ability to unify and empower, Nicole founded Write Good Stories, a storytelling agency and development lab for African writers committed to telling authentic stories across industries, spanning from entertainment and media to business and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Miss Nicole Asinogo. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to sharing today and hearing from you all. I'm just going to share my screen and then we will get started. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fab. Okay, so I was really excited when OAL reached out to me for this project because I have an agency called Write Good Stories. And so to talk about how to tell a compelling story is kind of like very, very important to me. So I'm really excited to share. So usually when you do these kind of workshops, we talk about things like, creating good characters, which I know you've had the workshop yesterday. We also talk about dialogue and we talk about structure and things that you can find in screenwriting books. So if you Google it, you'll see. So I kind of wanted to come with a different approach. Knowing that everybody on this call is a screenwriter in different capacities. Maybe you've written screenplays, maybe you've had success, maybe you're trying to still make it and you're trying to figure it out. Either way, I think that this will be very useful, the way that I've broken things down. So the first thing, just jumping right into it, is I want to talk about what is a story. Can you still see my screen? Can you see the slide? Just to make sure. Yeah.
Yes,
so
we
I
can.
want to talk about what a story actually is. Because sometimes we hear about writing good stories, doing good stories, but we actually don't really know what a story is at the basic definition of a story. So the definition of a story is an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment purposes. Okay, so an account of imaginary or real people told for entertainment purposes. Okay, now we know the definition of a story. I want this to be as interactive as possible. So I'm going to give us a little prompt. So this prompt is not going to take long. This is not big, exercise. But I want us to look at these three images that you see on the screen. And I want you to write a log line inspired by these images. So your minutes, we're going to talk about the log line that you've created. So obviously, people take weeks to do a log line. So this is weeks, months of. So this is just a practice that I want us to just so that we can discuss. So take the next 5 minutes. I'll stop talking now. 5 minutes.
Sorry, ma'am, your screen is frozen. We can just see the how to tell a compelling story.
Oh, really?
On screen. We can't see the
Thank you. That's what I was asking before. It said it's paused. I don't want to resume share. 1 second. Resume. It's not working. Let me stop and start again.
Okay.
Sorry. So this whole time I've just been on the first slide. My bad. Okay.
Okay, we could see write a log line inspired by these photos.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So these three photos, write a log line inspired by them. You have 5 minutes. It's 11:15 now. I'll be back 11:20 to check in.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, you have 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left, and then we'll pick this back up. Okay. How is that? So does anybody, I want to pick 3 people, anybody who wants to share. Please, I would love if you share your logline with me. For ease, just pop it in the chat. Oh, it's already there, some in the chat already. Okay, Brooks. Please put your loglines in the chat and I'll read them out. So we have Charles Adetoye. He says they were both young, happy and married, but the COVID year took all that away when he caught a flu that was refractory to drugs. He resisted the COVID vaccine. Unfortunately, he passed. Okay, thank you, Charles. Brooks, as the pandemic erupts, the city goes into a panic. A couple who only have each other are separated in isolation, hoping to reunite. Okay. Any more?
I think that's all for now.
That's all for now. Does anybody just want to pop in any more into the chat? I'll give you just 30 seconds. You know, there are no wrong answers. We're all here to learn. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. Okay, oh, another one. Thank you, Mariam.
Yeah.
During the COVID pandemic, a straining couple are faced with the loss of one of them. Okay. Thank you for trying. I know it's hard, it was hard, and obviously you've just come up with this just based off of images. So well done for trying. I think that's one very important aspect of writing and coming up with this story is consistently just trying to create imaginary events based on sometimes real experiences. So we all went through the COVID-19 era, and so everybody can kind of relate. Okay, so let's keep moving. And let's talk about what a good logline actually does. So a good logline usually covers 3 bases. It gives us the main character, the main character's goal, and the central conflict in the story. So every good logline covers these 3 bases. If your logline doesn't talk about the main character, what the main character is actually going after, and then the central conflict, that's the obstacle that is in the way of this main character getting this goal, then your logline is, you need to keep working on your logline, okay? So let's take Jaws. It's an old school film, but the logline is incredible, and I'll show you why. A police chief with a phobia for open water battles a gigantic shark with an appetite for swimmers and boat captains, in spite of a greedy town council who demands that the beach stay open. So let's break this down. I want you to look at some key things. A police chief, so that's the hero of the story. We know whose eyes we're seeing from the movie from, so it's his point of view. So he is basically telling us this logline. It's key. So when you want to identify who's our hero and you tell the logline from their point of view, so that's already their story. It's your protagonist's story. Just like you're telling the movie from their POV, the second thing is from the logline, it says, with a phobia for open water. Because that's amazing, because now you're going to be putting him in water, right? So you've already said he's scared of water, and now we've put him in water. And now, not only did you now put him in water, you added a gigantic shark into the water. right? So personally, I like the way that identifies the goal, which is to stop the shock, and then identifies the problem, which is the shock. It identifies the opponent, which is the shark as well, and also the city that didn't want them to, they don't want to close this beach, right? So that's also another antagonist. And then it also identifies the life and death stakes. So you know that this is not a joke. This is a shark that is killing people. This guy's afraid. Now this guy has to stop this shark. It has all of the elements of a really good logline. So these are the kind of things that you have to ask yourself when you're creating a logline. What is my main character? What is his goal? And what is the conflict? So 4 questions that you should ask yourself before you even turn your idea into a story. So now what happens is that a lot of people have an idea and then you just immediately kind of start writing. You have a kind of shape of an idea, you start writing. And what happens is you fall into this place where you don't know where to go anymore, or the story just kind of now feels one kind. You've put all this hope into it and then it just doesn't pan out. You're trying to explain the story, but it's long, and you know, you're telling your friends and their eyes are kind of like glazing over and they're not really getting you, but in your heart you know it, but you've gone too quickly. So one of the good things about the story is really asking yourself certain questions before you even start writing. So what are these questions? Who is your main character? What is your main character trying to accomplish? Who is trying to stop them from accomplishing whatever they're trying to accomplish? And what happens if they fail? So when you have a movie that like somebody is kidnapped, if you don't get the kid back, the robbers are going to kill the kid. That's stakes. You know, that's like, if they fail, this girl is going to die. So the audience is already invested. They're rooting for the protagonist because it's a serious life and death stake. You always kind of have to look at like, what are the stakes of the film? Even with comedy, there could be a comedy film about, you know, like Hangover. There were stakes. If they don't get to a certain time, their buddy's not going to get married. So there's always stakes. So what are the stakes, even in a comedy, even in a rom-com, even in a drama, what are the stakes? So bonus question that I think a lot of people miss when they're telling a story: is the situation they are in ironic in any way? Because when you have an ironic premise, it actually makes it kind of more interesting for the person who is like looking at the story. I'll give you examples. So like the log lines that read the best are the ones with some sort of irony. So I took our examples. A lawyer who can't lie, liar, liar. Already the best premise, you know? I'm not saying that Shewa and Adedoja and OL are liars, but, you know, it's already interesting. A king who can't speak to his people, the king's speech. Already, what do you mean the king stutters and can't speak? That's irony. Brothers who rob people with their mother's help, a tribe called Judah. That's irony. Which mother helps their children become armed robbers, you know? So irony is a very, very good tool when you're trying to tell a story that is like, just makes it a little bit more interesting. Most story ideas fail at the level of concept. Sad, but true. I've learned this the hard way. I took this quote from a book called It's the Concept, Stupid, by Max Adams, who basically says like, there's no big, you know, why did this thing not do good? Because the concept, there was holes in the concept. A lot of us move too quickly. We don't have a good concept. You're already pitching to producers. And because producers are trying to make money, they'll just collect your concept, whether there are holes or not. And then what you have is, you know, you're watching something, you're like, how did that happen? How did he get here? How did that? Because the concept was not done properly. So try and take your time as much as you can to make sure that your concept is strong. Okay, so all these things I'm saying are well and good, but like, how do you ensure that your story is compelling enough? How do you know? How do you really, really know? The first and probably the best writing advice I ever got was from, you know, a writing teacher that I went to this workshop, and he said, tell yourself the truth first. It was not like any advice I've ever heard where they say, make sure 3 acts, make sure this. It was like, tell yourself the truth. Like, are you being truthful to yourself, to your character, to your experience? You know, I remember when I was younger, I wrote, you know, a bit of a short story, and it was set in Minnesota, and I gave it to my dad to read, and my dad said, "Have you ever been to Minnesota?" I said, "No." And then he was like, "So why is it set here?" And I was so upset. I was like, well, you know, you don't understand. I was like, has J.K. Rowling ever been to Hogwarts, you know? And, you know, but at the end of the day, Hogwarts was a fictional world, whereas Minnesota is a very real place. How can I be writing a story based on Minnesota? I'm not telling myself the truth. So this is a quote from Jordan Peele that I really like. He says, "I've noticed that the truth works. If you're being yourself and you're just using your own emotions, they can feel it. If you're doing fake, they can feel it. It took me a while in comedy to realize that your truth is more powerful than your mask." Asking yourself questions is the best way to get to the truth. So here are some questions that I ask myself. What does this idea mean to me? Me, Nicole, what does it mean to me? What message am I trying to send with this story? Do my characters feel like real people? Sometimes I'm writing something and I'm like, I don't know anybody who talks like that. So there's a problem. Why are you faking it? Am I the best person to tell this story? I once wrote a screenplay about a homosexual couple. And after I wrote the first draft, I realized that I'm not the best person to tell this story. I'm not saying that you have to be a homosexual to write a homosexual character, but it just felt like I was forcing it. I was forcing an experience that I've never had. And so I left it because I actually didn't feel like I was the best person to tell the story. So you kind of have to really tell yourself the truth. Are the stakes high enough? Is what is happening in the story actually moving? Like, do the characters actually have anything to lose? Or am I just telling a story for story's sake? Has a story like this been told before? A lot of us have ideas, and we don't do our research to see if there are movies like that out there. So pop it into Google, pop it into ChatGPT. Show me stories with premises like this. You'll be amazed at the things that come out. And it doesn't mean that you can't tell a similar kind of story, because every story can be unique depending on how you look at it. But really kind of look if there's because if there's a story, like for instance, anybody who wants to tell a story in Hollywood about a Godfather will think twice, because Mario Puzo's Godfather is the best gangster film of all time. So I'm not saying you can't do a gangster film, but you have to think before you go into a space where somebody has done it better than you. Is this a story that needs to be told? So you have a story, but like, does it need to be told? Is it that important? Is it relevant? Will producers be like, we've been looking for this story? Sometimes as writers, we create things in silos and we don't think of the outside world, right? We don't think of commercial. I have somebody from a big production company in Nigeria who's always like, Nicole, anything commercial? Anything blockbuster? I'm like, no, I don't have any. My stories are like, the stories I've been writing are like small, quiet. And he's like, we need a blockbuster. They need a Tribe Called Judah type of film. And I'm like, no, sorry, I don't have. No, not today, you know? But you say, is this a story that needs to be told? Tell yourself the truth first. That would be my first, you know, how to tell a compelling story. Tell yourself the truth first. The second thing is identify your unique voice. So a lot of us forget this point. You know, we're always so obsessed with structure. The amount of screenwriters that love reading screenwriting books, me included, if you could see my background, you would see books, all the books in the world. I've read all of them, you know, and we get obsessed reading these books, teaching us things and stuff. But at the end of the day, a lot of these books are written by Hollywood people that don't even have our experiences. So it's kind of like, ask yourself, what is my unique voice? How do I sound different? Out of all the screenwriters, how am I different? What is my unique voice? And then this is a paragraph from a book that I liked about voice. It says, voice is the distinctive qualities of your own creative personality as expressed on the page. This includes your turn of phrase, your syntax, your punctuation, your character development, and even formatting. Yes, formatting is part of voice. Everybody says, oh, you have to write like this. If you read a Tarantino script, you'll realize that he is his own rules, is his world, and you just have to come along for the ride. So it's really hard to establish your voice, but the more you try, the more you put yourself in the position where you know that you want your unique voice to come out, it will come out slowly. So this is another quote I like from Michaela Cole. She said, you have to be true to your instinctive way of writing. You have to find your identity. So when you write differently, don't be like, oh, my writing is different. That's actually your superpower. It's good. You're not supposed to be like anybody else. You're supposed to write differently. So these are some tips to honing your unique voice. I find journaling a good way to hone your voice. You know why? Because it's only you and the page. Nobody's reading your journal, so you can be free. If you're a generally catty person, if you like, want to talk about people, you want to talk bad, you want to say what you didn't like, you want to say your true feelings, maybe your boss was rude to you and you can't be rude back to your boss. Journal about that experience, how that made you feel, what you wish you could have said to your boss. You will see that there's actually a way that you write. There's actually a way that you come across with your emotions. Journaling is actually a fantastic way to learn what your real authentic voice is. 2, use elements of your life experiences within your stories. You're the only one that has lived inside of your life. You're the only one who has an annoying auntie that gossips all the time. You're the only one that, had a situation where you overheard your parents fighting when you were younger. You were the only one inside your life. So use elements of your life experiences within your stories so that you can start to develop a unique style. 4 or 3, live your best life. Writers who stay at home all day, who say they don't want to go out, you need to go out. You need to live. Otherwise, what are you writing about? What do you know? How can you write about run skills if you never see them? How can you write about, like big men or whatever, if you're not like looking around when you're out, if you're not sitting in these places for lunch, if you're not overhearing conversations, if you're not on the bus listening to how people are talking, you're not able to craft real dialogue if you're not actually outside living your life. So go and live and then write down your experiences. Acknowledge your characters are as important as your story. A lot of people put story over character. I think that's a mistake. Your characters and your story are neck and neck. Your characters make your story. So if you have characters, and I'm guilty of this as well, I focus all my attention on my protagonist and my antagonist until one day when I wrote Rattlesnake, one of the actors who played a character called Bala, he called me while they were filming and he was like, what was your intention behind Bala? He doesn't really say much. I can't really get a feel for him. And I was like, I didn't really have an intention. It was the 5th character. He was a smaller role. I didn't really kind of pay that much attention to him. Everything was happening to the main character and the protagonist and all that, and the antagonist. I didn't really pay attention to this small character, forgetting that a human being, an actor, is going to play this role. And this, even if it's a small character, he could have played it so well that people are like, I wish he came back on screen. But as a writer, I forgot that. So you treat your characters like real people because they're going to be played by a real person who needs material to work with, who needs backstory to work with. Because if I had paid attention to that character, I would have said, oh no, he's quiet, but he's a silent assassin. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that, So I didn't really know the character and it came off when they were acting it. Watch a range of genres. I know you don't like action. I know you don't like fantasy. Watch all of them because you'll be able to start to see the distinctive voices of writers that you admire. Find the scripts and study them. If you don't know, most scripts are available online. If you just type the name of the script on Google and then put PDF. Most Hollywood scripts are available online. So you like a movie, find the script. Sometimes I watch the movie and I watch the movie and I hold the script and at the same time, just to see how much of the script went into the film and how the writer describes the scenes. It's very, very useful. Okay, now, raising the stakes in your screenplay is simple. The next point is conflict and stakes. Raising the stakes in your screenplay is simple and easy. Conflict, that's how you raise the stakes. The more conflict you have, the more characters have to lose as a result of that conflict. The more stakes, the more the stakes are raised. And the more the stakes are raised, the more invested readers and audiences will be in your story. Let me give you an example so that it's clear. Imagine your character is climbing a mountain and then the rope that they're using to climb breaks. Now they're hanging off the mountain. The conflict is the rope breaking and the fight to reach the top. What are the stakes? Life and death. This rope breaks, it's gonna die. So already you're like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? That's how you build conflict with stakes. So how do I raise the stakes? First of all, make sure that every single character has a major problem / goal. Every character in a well-crafted screenplay has a problem or a goal with high stakes attached, not just the protagonist and antagonist. So I'll give you a tip. Brainstorm possibilities and assign each character in your script a goal and/or a problem. But don't just make them random problems. Don't be like, okay, this person has cancer. This person is looking for this. This person is looking for this. No, don't just give them random problems. Give them relevant problems that relate to what is at stake to the protagonist or overall goal. It has to relate. So it's not everybody, because sometimes you watch something and be like, wow, everybody's going through it. Like, and it's too much. So it has to relate. So you have to be very careful. So let's look at an example quickly. Okay, first ask yourself, what's at stake for these characters in this specific scene? And how does this relate back to the overall stakes they have during the course of the movie? Let's look at a case study. One of my favorite films is Whiplash. So in the opening scene of this film, this really hard-ass tutor, Fletcher, interrupts the student, Andrew, while he's practicing. We immediately know what's at stake in this scene for both characters. Will Andrew impress Fletcher enough to make it into his band? Will Fletcher find another star pupil he can bully into greatness? So stakes are not always climbing a mountain, It could just be a teacher and a student, but you know that this guy wants to get into this school, and this guy wants to be able to get a student up to the level that he's at. So these stakes relate back to the overall stakes of the film, which is, will Andrew ever become a jazz legend? Will Fletcher ever create a jazz legend through his drill sergeant teaching methods? So from the beginning, pro tip, try is your message that love is never enough? Is your message that money is the root of all evil? Is your message that there's a gap between the rich and the poor that can never be found? Have a theme that is bigger than your characters, because what you do is it allows people to relate to your story on a personal way. Even if they've never seen a story like this before, it enables them to connect emotionally to your story. So make sure you always have a theme. A story without a theme is not a good story. Of course, employ a solid story structure. I ascribe to the 3-act structure. I think it's the simplest, it's the easiest. So ascribe to that 3 solid story structure. The book that I always recommend, which most people know about, is Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. It's a great resource. It taught me how to write my first screenplay. I still use it till this day. Create a vivid setting and world. A lot of people, sometimes you just say, oh, it's in Lagos. Okay, there's so many different parts of Lagos. Is it in Ikorodu? If it's in Ikorodu, what's in Ikorodu? What's the high school? What's the hospital? What's the bus stop like? What's the this? Think of it as a whole world, instead of just giving a backdrop and saying, cut to Ikoyi Lekki Bridge, and then that's it. That's the world building. That's not a world. That's it. That's just a tool. Show, don't tell. Everybody says it, but it's so important. Don't say, oh my God, my husband is dying. Like, just show us he's not doing well in the hospital. Don't say it, because you take away from the audience thinking through your film. Incorporate subtext. So subtext is pretty similar to this show don't tell, but subtext is, something is happening. So there's a scene of a film, I'm wrapping up now, but I'll leave with this. There's a scene of a film that I really like where a boss comes into his employee's office and says, hey, just want to say congratulations, you did a really good job last week. I just want to say congrats for that. And the guy's looking at him, he's like, oh, thank you so much. And the guy's like, yeah, well done. And the employees look at him and he was like, I'm sure they've told you what's happening. And he goes, oh, what? And then the employee goes, yeah, I'm getting a divorce. And the boss is like, oh, a divorce? I thought you had cancer. This person heard you crying in the bathroom. I thought you had cancer. And he's like, no. He's like, oh, buddy, it's just a divorce. Oh, guys, he's okay. The subtext in that scene, it was such a random dialogue, but the subtext is that the employer was scared that the guy was dying and he won't be able to do his work anymore. That was actually the subtext. And then he now found out he's a divorce. He's like, oh, so the guy didn't care about his feelings at all. He just wanted to make sure, don't die on me, or don't die on me. But they never said it. So you will use as an audience, you're now in the story because you feel like you're clever because you got it. But if he had come in and said, oh, buddy, I heard you were crying in the bathroom. Are you okay? It would have been lost. So try and use subtext. It's more powerful than being on the nose. And then finally, embrace revisions. When people give you feedback, take it on, make it better. If you're telling your friend a story and the person doesn't get it, don't fight them. Like, take it on. If they don't understand it, there's a reason. So embrace revisions, and it can only make your story stronger. And yeah, ask me anything.
Thank you very much, Miss Nicole, for the brilliant section. Very, very. I actually do enjoy the section. Was even way more than what I actually expected, especially when it comes to the tips that you've given about telling compelling story. So I'm just going to give more or less like a very, very short recap of everything that you said before we go straight to the questions and answer. Thank you once again. So your topic is how to tell a compelling story, and then just as expected, you lay the foundation for the scope of a story or what the story is. I gave an account that a story is an account of imaginary or real people or events told for entertainment purposes. An account of imaginary or real people or events told for entertainment purposes. And you made mention of the major component or the basis of a logline. You said one is the main character, two is the main character's goal, and lastly is the central conflict. I gave example of the Jaw. I watched Jaw. That's, I think the second one, Jason Statham's Jaw. It was a very, very interesting movie. And then from what you said about the logline, actually, I relate myself with it. And then you made mention of the 4 questions to ask before you turn an idea into a screenplay or before you turn an idea into a story. You said, number 1, you have to identify who exactly the main character is. Number 2, what is the main character trying to accomplish? More or less like the objective of the main character. Number 3, who is trying to stop the main character? I obviously know that for every story, there's always somebody that is always against the main character. Some years ago, we used to call the main character actor, and we called the opponents bones. When I was younger, we used to call them actor and bones. So I just relate with it essentially. Number 3, who's trying to stop the main character, who I call the bones. And then lastly, what happens if they fail? And then you made mention of the major tool that is used for storytelling from your experience, and you said that is irony. Use irony to more or less diverse or more or less to digest storytelling. And then you went straight to more or less to give answers to your topic, which is how to tell a compelling story. And you did justice, brilliant justice to giving the major factors. Number 1, you said you have to first of all tell yourself the truth. And you have to ask, the way you tell yourself the truth is to ask questions. Asking questions is the best and the most reliable way to tell yourself the truth. Number 2, you say you have to identify your unique voice. You gave us tips for identifying our unique voice, such as journaling, using our life experiences, enjoying our best life, which I obviously relate so well with. Then you also made mention, another tip, you have to raise the stakes high, and you have to use the tool of conflict to raise the stake high. You also made mention of understanding your audience, use your themes and your messages to tell a compelling story, use a vivid setting, you embrace revision, and always seek feedback. More or less, this more or less the overview or a brief recap of every single thing as regards what your presentation is all about when it comes to the topic, how to tell a compelling story. And lastly, I have to definitely say that you did profound justice to it with the images, with the insights, with every single thing that you shared, especially with the examples. I have to say, man, you did brilliant justice to that. So not to waste so much of our time, I'm just going to go straight to the questions and answer. We have a few questions here, and the first question that we have is from Brooks. Okay. Brooks asks, how can you build these stakes and make it worthwhile for the audience in a short film with 2 characters, for instance, a film on grief set in a single location? I repeat, how can you build these stakes and make it worthwhile for the audience in a short film with 2 characters, for instance, a film on grief set in a single location?
A film on what? I didn't hear that last part.
A film on grief set. I believe it's a grief setting. A film on grief setting.
Right. So I think, okay, so a short film, you have obviously a shorter time to establish things. So it really is, what are the general stakes of the entire story? So if it's on grief, what is it that somebody needs to be buried? Is it that somebody has been buried, like living in the aftermath of grief, but how is it affecting their everyday life? Are they able to work? Are they able to move on? Is it threatening them from living their life? How is that? How is that? So sometimes when you watch a film, maybe about maybe an alcoholic, and they show that they've not washed dishes, everywhere is scattered, they've kind of set the scene that this is affecting their life. They're no longer dating, they're no longer going out, they're no longer leaving. So the stakes are that they're literally missing their life. So I think first of all, establish the general stakes in what the impact of that grief is having on these 2 people. Is it their marriage that is going to fall apart? So how do you establish that they're no longer sleeping together, for instance? How do you establish that? Maybe you just show them on opposite sides of the bed, and then one person leaves and whatever, or you show that one person is not sleeping in the bedroom anymore. So those are the ways you build tension in a quiet film. So, and the stakes could be the marriage, the stakes could be the children. It really depends on the plot, which I'm not sure what the plot is, but stakes can be subtle. They don't have to be, like I said, a mountain. They can literally just be, are the stakes a love that is now lost? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I believe it does. I believe it does. Thank you very much for the accurate answer. So the next question is from Stephanie. Stephanie asks, good morning. I really love this section. Regarding the emphatic prompts you gave, can you give us your own log line for it? I think it would be really, really useful, really helpful.
So I didn't actually write a log line, but if I was to write a log line, it would be along the elements I had mentioned before. So main character. So a lot of people you saw the couple, and you didn't really say which one was the main character and what's their goal. So, I put in the COVID thing to see if anybody would approach it in a different way. So seeing the vaccine, maybe I wanted it to be something like, the man, let's say I'll give him his name, Olu, or like, what does he do? So let's say he's a ex, an aspiring politician, kind of goes on a campaign against a pharmaceutical company after tragically losing his wife to a vaccine, something like that. Just so that, okay, that they're kind of stakes. Obviously, a pharmaceutical company would be very like the big dogs, and then he's fighting them in court. So that's conflict. And then, I would kind of like approach it that, but I would definitely have given them an adjective to describe who the protagonist is. His goal is to find justice for his wife, and the pharmaceutical company is doing everything they can to bring him down. Something like that.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. So the next question is from Charles. Charles asks, how do I know that my story is ready? I mean, there are times when one would have a revised manuscript and months later, one would still realize some things could have been written or left out of the story.
You never really finish. So you finish, but you never really finish. You can keep going back. You can keep fixing. You can keep fixing, because writers were like, so we're perfectionists, you know, and there's always something, you know, you never really finish. Even me, when my movies are done, as I'm watching, I'm like, ugh, could have been different. You could have done it like this, you know? So you always do that. But I think ultimately, you know when the story is ready, and it's important to distinguish between the story and the screenplay. So you know when the story is ready, when you know it's tight, when you say the log line to your friends and nobody's squinting, saying, can you repeat yourself? Why am I repeating? Was it not English? So if you can just say your log line to people and be like, do you want to watch this film? Or how does it sound? Then you know, okay, the story, you have something, and then you go. And a lot of things is also intuition. It's like trusting your gut, you know. So trusting your gut enough to say, okay, it's ready. You don't always have to go to people. You can actually trust yourself, trust your intuition. You know when the story is good. You know it, like deep down. I don't think anybody doesn't know when their story is not great, personally.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the response. So another question, we have a couple of questions just keep coming in. So next question is from Ramat. Ramat asks, hi, Nicole. You will agree with, hi, Nicole, you will agree with me that a great story needs a talented writer. But what about the director? In Nollywood and some low-budget films in general, it feels like directors sometimes miss the mark when translating the scripts to the screen. The story itself might be compelling on paper, but the movie falls flat. Do you think some of the blame falls on the writer too? Maybe the script is great, but something gets lost in translation. What's your take on this?
Wow, like I could do a whole podcast on this. Rahmat, I feel you. I definitely think, you know, directors can kill good stories, and they do it all the time. I think that what I realized early on was that I need to stop complaining and actually become a director if I want to direct. Because at the end of the day, you're the only one who can really translate your vision the way that you intended it to. So sometimes when I first started, I'd be like, how come they will be like praising the director when like literally the story was written by the writer? Like I didn't understand. But you know, it is what it is. So at the end of the day, if you feel like your story keeps, you know, they're not translating it properly, I think that one, you should consider directing. Number two, I think that when you're negotiating your contracts, you should have some safety things in place. So for instance, something that I request is, you know, like story editing credits. I also request sometimes, you know, to be on set. A lot of directors don't like writers on set, but it's something that you can request. You know, so I think there are ways to just try and maintain the integrity of the story. But yeah, I think it's a hard one. It's really hard. There's no way to really, you kind of just have to try and pair yourself with directors that you trust, that actually have similar visions. I've had screenplays that when I watch it's not what I wrote. I'm just like, what is this? This is not what I wrote. And nobody's going to say, oh, the director was bad. They're going to say the writing was bad. So it's a cross we have to bear, my dear.
Thank you very much for that. The next question is from Miriam. Miriam asks, love this section. Thank you, Miss Nicole. I've got two questions. Number one, do you believe that there is no new story? Filmmakers say every story has been told in one way or the other. But when I say films like Squid Games or Supercell, okay, I wonder if this is true. Number two, you talked about telling a story that is authentic to you. But how do you tell a story about a main character's role you do not know? You do not know much about. For instance, a character who is a soldier.
Okay, so I really love this question. I think there are new stories, but I do understand when people say there are no new stories under the sun, because sure, Supercell is like really cool, and it's about sickle cell and then people that have the gene. So nobody has told this story from that point of view. Nobody has told it from that point of view, but there are superhero people stories where people discover that they have this superpower, right? So it's not a completely new, it's a new take on an existing story. So I do believe that there are no new stories under the sun, but it's how you approach that story that can make things different. Okay, there's that. The second thing I will say, what was the second question you asked? Okay, like when you've not lived the experience. So sure, like there's an element of research that has to go into your work. Like I wrote Living in Bondage, and I don't know any people that do blood money. Do you get what I mean? So you do some research, I would hope so. So like you do research. I did a lot of research into like 1993 Otokoto killings, all those kind of things, in order to kind of get a feel for what those times were. And obviously the original film gave me context. But I think ultimately, when I say bring in your real life experiences and bring in things that relate to you, it's really more about the emotional side of things. So maybe you had an uncle who, was had PTSD from, I don't know, the Biafran War, or maybe you had you watched something, just something in your life that kind of leans to it. And it doesn't have to be the main character. It could be the people around him. It could be the way his mother loves him. That is the way your mother loves her son. So it's just about taking things that so that everything isn't so foreign. The emotional side of your characters is what you can draw from. It doesn't have to be the exact experience. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I believe it does. So for the next question is from so many questions. The next question is from May. May ask, so in all of this, where is the place for a story from the realm of make-believe?
So I think that's all about world building. And I wanted to touch on it, but I knew that we wouldn't have time. So with world building, it really is like, okay, maybe in your free time, Google like the best ways to build a world, or what the best world building techniques or something like that. You'll see a lot of articles, but basically it's kind of like you're creating a world that doesn't exist. So it's make believe, it's imagination, right? So you have to define the parameters of that world. What are the physical capabilities of that world? So, are people blue, for instance, in that world, Avatar? Can they fly? Do they all have powers? Is there something about the crops or the vegetation? Maybe they all have healing properties. What are the parameters of that world? So you really have to construct it. So look at a country. So you can even just like, for instance, look at a country. When you look at a country's property, if you just Google any country in the world, you'll see population, you'll see size, you'll see the number of states, you'll see the. So the more you can actually create that fictional world, these are the number of people, these are the kind of people that live here, these are the settlements, this is how the rich live. Is it a monarchy? Do they have kings or do they have presidents? Literally create the world. Like literally, you have everything. So is it a school? Look at Hogwarts, for instance, a school in the sky. So there are different ways that you can create this world. But you really have to commit to it. You can't do it small and then not do it, you have to commit to it.
The question says, good afternoon, Nicole. How do you write a traumatic event without visually traumatizing your audience?
I think that's a very important question, because I think like sometimes when we're trying to show trauma, we like just go too far. And there's so many films that I've seen that I'm just like violent rape scenes or like violent killings that I'm just like, was that really necessary? Do you understand? So like, I think really that aspect of, you know, when you say show, don't tell, it doesn't necessarily mean show the rape, don't talk about the rape. You can show something as violent as rape without actually showing that. You can actually show, for instance, I don't know if you've ever watched, I think this is a good one to watch if you're not aware, or if you want to see how they did it. I May Destroy You by Michaela Cole. It was amazing because they take you through a very traumatic event, but you don't actually see what happens. You see that she's disheveled. You see that she's trying to think of, you know, retrace her steps. You see all these kind of things, but you're not actually, so you're going to the emotional side of it, as opposed to what happened. So if you're trying to show a traumatic event without, you know, being too crass, you know, with the audience, like I remember somebody did Alu for, and even from the poster, I was like, I'm never gonna watch this. Never. It was disgusting. Like they had like blood on the boys and stuff. And I was like, there is a better way of telling this story, that we know this happened, this horrible jungle justice thing happened, but you didn't need to show them with tires wrapped around them. Like that's so crass. So you have to find the emotional way of telling a hard story.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So the last question, we have a question here. It says, how do you find inspiration for your story?
I think you find inspiration, honestly, everywhere. Like, really have to, as a writer, you have to start paying attention in different ways. So I think there are two main ways of, you know, finding it. There are many ways of finding inspiration, actually, but the ones that are coming to mind, one, I would say everyday life, like just paying attention to everyday life. Today, I was walking this morning and I saw a man wearing like a, you know, an army uniform, but he was just sitting on the ground and he was just looking like he was thinking of his whole life. And I was just thinking of him like, wow, what could be going on in this man's life that is so deep that this early morning he's just sat with his thoughts, you know? So I was thinking of the man. So like he inspired me, you know, but like not enough to want to go and write the story. But one day, if I'm writing a soldier, I might not write a character of a soldier that is so like strict. I might write a character of a soldier who has a lot on his mind, who's, you know, who's dealing with some emotional trauma or something like that. So that's one. Everyday life, everyday experiences. Nigeria is the funniest place if you pay attention, the funniest place. Like just daily interactions are just hilarious to me anyway. So pay attention, listen to your environment, and inspiration will come from there. The second way to find inspiration is to draw from your real life experiences. I once got a tattoo of the Biafran flag, and you know, everybody was joking that, have I joined them? Have I whatever? And so the tattoo, I was like, no, like, you know, my dad was a child soldier, so I'm just kind of paying homage to my dad. And the guy said to me, he was like, oh, so why haven't you ever written anything about Biafra? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he said, you have the license to tell that story. And I thought that was very, very powerful because I never saw it that way. So, you know, drawing from your life experiences, your father's experiences, your mother's experiences, that's your story. So you have the license to tell stories about your life and the people around you. It doesn't have to be the exact story, but you're drawing inspiration. And then the third way to draw inspiration is probably the most obvious way, which is to watch films, to read books, look at the great stories, say what are the best books of all time and read 2 of them, you know, just read, consume, watch everything. I remember when I went to film school, every single week we had to watch a film and dissect the film. And that's when I realized that I actually haven't, so people will be talking, they'll be like, oh, have you seen Hitchcock? And I'm like, no. They say, have you seen this? I'm like, no. They're like, okay, I realized that I wasn't a film buff. I'm in film school, but I've not watched any of the great films. I can't even name 3 Tarantino films. you can't be a screenwriter and not watch films. So, and reading screenplays. So that's kind of how the third way I would say that you can find inspiration.
Okay, I'm sorry, just one last question just came in from Coyote. After this question, this will just wrap up the questions and answers section. So Coyote says, my name is Coyote. Thank you for this section. My question, in trying to communicate your unique voice by speaking through different characters, the author takes up multiple personality and voices in his character development. How can you tell your story without attaching yourself to the character's experience?
I think that you just have to know that like you are not the character. You have to just approach it in that way. So obviously sometimes when you're writing a particular character, you might feel very like close to them, or you might feel very affiliated with them. But honestly, you really have to kind of just put a boundary between you and the character. So I know there's method actors who have to kind of get into the role, and like if they're playing a drug dealer, they have to like act like drug dealers and stuff. I honestly think that's a bit deep, but you know, I don't know. So it really depends. So I think that it depends on the kind of writer you are. There's a movie called, you should probably check it out if you haven't seen it. It's called Eyemofe by Chuko and Arit, I believe, and two brothers. One directed, one wrote it. And the film hasn't, I don't think it went to cinemas in Nigeria, but it did a festival run. It did really well. And the film, I remember watching it and thinking they shot it in Yaba. And I remember thinking, wow, like nobody is, you know, sometimes you're watching a Nigerian film and you see the children on the road kind of looking, you know that they're filming, you know, nobody was looking, nobody was disturbing. It just felt like they were inside the story. And then later I found out that they actually lived in Yaba, year apartment in Yaba. And the boys actually lived there. So by the time they were shooting, the area boys knew them, the woman selling granite knew them, everybody knew them. They immersed themselves in the story. So I don't think I would do that. I'm just being honest with you. I don't think I'm that kind of writer. I don't think I'm going to go and live in Mushin for 1 year because I'm writing a story about Mushin. But it depends on you. Some people are so dedicated. So you might be so dedicated to your characters that you're like, I'm going to embody this person. I don't believe you have to do all that. I think that you just have to really make them real as possible, make them have real life experiences, but also understand that no only good people and there are no only bad people. I think that's the most important thing. So when you're telling a character of a bad person, what is the good in him? What is the good in him? Nobody is purely bad unless you're the devil. So what is the good in him? Even if that's why when you watch a gangster film, they're so good to their mothers. They're so sweet with their mothers or their wives, you know, because they have to show good. Not everybody's going to chop your head off. The same with good characters. If there's a girl that is holy, 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 what does she do that is like, maybe she's judgmental. Maybe she has a secret thing she does at night that nobody knows. Who knows? But nobody is all holy, holy. Nobody's all bad. So I think that's the where you should fall when you're creating your characters.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Nicole. This has come to the end of the question and answer section, and precisely the section by Ms. Nicole on how to tell a compelling story. So on behalf of the team, on behalf of the law firm Olisa Agbakoba Legal, OAL, and the Entertainment Practice Group, I have to say a significant thank you to you for coming, for taking your time to allow us draw from your insights, from your experience, from your tips, from your presentation and your slides. Really do appreciate your time. You definitely did justice, significant justice to it, and we do not take you for granted, as a matter of fact. So I'll say thank you to you. Thank you very much. This has come to the end of our section. I'll be moving on shortly to the next section, to be taken by Mr. Emmanuel, one of our associates, our very own, and his topic is going to be on the legal considerations for script writers and screenwriters. Thank you very much, Ms. Nicole. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
That's fine. So, Ade.
All right, so I will be reading the bio of Emmanuel, Mr. Emmanuel Agerario. Okay, sorry, a minute, please. Oh. Sorry, please hold on.
No problem, Ade.
All right. Emmanuel Aguerario is a passionate advocate for the creative industry. As a member of the Sports, Entertainment, and Technology Practice Group and the Dispute Resolution Team, Emmanuel specializes in entertainment practice, intellectual property, corporate advisory, dispute resolution, technology, and regulatory matters. His unique blend of legal acumen and industry understanding makes him a valuable resource for screenwriters and scriptwriters navigating the complex area of the entertainment industry. Emmanuel is committed to empowering creative professionals by providing practical legal guidance and insights that help them protect their rights and navigate the business side of their craft. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Emmanuel Aguerario to take the second session in our training. Thank you. Emmanuel, you're muted, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so it's great to be on this section with everyone. I'm very happy to hear one of the things and that we is as much as possible we try to encourage legal considerations with respect to issues that they can really avoid while going into any aspect of their business. And one of such I will be talking on today is on scriptwriters and screenwriters. Now, before I go on, I don't know, Sean, can you please put on my slide? Hello? Sean, can you hear me? Please just put up my slide. If you can
Okay,
hear
I'll
me.
do that, but yes, I'll do that. You can proceed for the meantime.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay, no problem. One thing with that I've come to understand in this particular field of work and practices for many creatives, and especially for screenwriters and scriptwriters that I've encountered, most of them usually do not see the need for which they want to engage a lawyer. Most of them usually do not see the need for which you would like, why do you need a lawyer? At this point, I'm just trying to put one or two things down. At this point, I don't need a lawyer. Or maybe they want to, a friend might just invite them to write a particular script, and they just do that and be like, oh, for now, it's just about passion, no need for legal documentation or having to write anything. Maybe when we make money at that point, we might have to start talking about or prioritizing legal matters and all that. But today, I want to say it's really wrong if, as a script writer or a screenwriter, if you're not putting your legal matters as a high priority on your list. And I will tell you the reason why I'm going to say this. Basically, there are three reasons. And the first one is screenwriting is a business. And if you understand it from that particular perspective, that businesses run on contractual agreements, then you know that there is every need for you to take into consideration legal matters and issues that may arise. Another reason why I would say it's important that you put legal considerations and equally even get a lawyer on board from the onset. It's because these agreements help define the business relationship between the screenwriters and the people you're working with. So if you don't put those agreements in place, you don't really have definitive terms with respect to what you're doing or the work that you're doing for a specific person. Another consideration or need for which you need a lawyer or for which you need to put legal consideration on the front burner is because if you don't define your business relationship, there may be little or no recourse when problem arise, and problem often arises. So I think with this, I will just go on to my screen. Okay, Sean, please, can you make it a bit bold? It's as if it's not coming up properly. Yes. So thank you. So these are my slides. So our topic for today is legal consideration for screenwriters and scriptwriters. Sean, please go on. Thank you. Okay. So the content today of what I intend to cover, because there are definitely a lot of things with respect to this topic, but as much as possible try to streamline ourselves to issues that are often recurring in this particular field. One is copyright and intellectual property protection. Another is contractual agreement relevant to scriptwriters. Another is intellectual property ownership and rights. Another is privacy and information concern. Then after which we'll look and take some feedback. So Shane, you can go to the next slide. On copyright and intellectual property, I know as a screenwriter, one of the things that you would have come across is with respect to copyright. And for copyright protects original work of authorship in tangible. When with the minute and in Nigeria, if you look at the Nigeria Copyright Act, you will insist in a work, that particular work is placed or fixed in a definite mode structure. Copyright automatically substitutes. But however, you must also understand that there is need to have a second layer of protection, and that is the reason for which Copyright Act makes provision with respect to the Copyright Registry and Copyright Commission. So what the Copyright Registry and Commission does is that it has a depository of all work that has been registered with it. And what that depository does is that for anyone that wants to just type and check whether a work currently subsists that has been registered, the person can use the central register and just know that, oh, copyright subsists in this particular work, so I can't really go that particular way. And it's equally help improving first in time. If you have issues and you want to contest who was the first person to have done this particular work, if you've registered that particular work, Copyright Commission, then it gives you the priority to say, oh, I was first in time, and it makes it easy to prove ownership and title. Now, what was the purpose for which you release copyright with respect to a particular work? Now, copyright grants exclusive rights to creators to control the use and distribution of your work. That's what it does. If you do a work, one of the things that you, well, because it's a business, you want to be able to utilize and make profit from that work. In other words, you want to make economic gain. And equally, there's a person that has done that particular work. The Copyright Act refers to that as a moral right with respect to that particular work of authorship that has been created. So we stated here that the right granted, one is exclusive rights, which include the right to reproduction, the right to distribution, the right to adoption, the right to public performance, display, and adaptation of derivative work with respect to that particular work. So the minute you've created a work, as a script writer, the minute you've written that particular script, as a screenwriter, the minute you've been able to do a particular movie for which the copyright resides in you are entitled to have exclusive right, ownership to control, to manage, distribute, and equally license or assign a particular work as you may like. Now, the duration of copyright. Now, copyright typically lasts for a lifetime of the author plus 70 years after the death of the author. Now, just to ensure that there is a long-time protection with respect to that particular work. So the Copyright Act states that if you are an author of a script, if you're an author with respect to literary work, it is during your lifetime. But for other category of work, Copyright Act stipulates some limited duration. For some, it is 70 years. For others, it is 50 years, depending on the nature of work that has been created. Sure, you can go forward. Now, what are the practical tips? That one of the things that a work that you created has done for you is that the copyright registration, or with respect to you having ownership of that particular work, one of the benefits it does is that it enables you to claim for damages whenever there is infringement with respect to that work. It equally enables you to even send a cease and desist letter to someone who's using that particular work without your consent. You can equally even demand and say, the person that has particular script should come forward and account with respect to monies that have been made for a work that you did. You can equally even go to the extent to get a Mariba injunction or a Madamus injunction with respect to the person bringing the entire work, if the person just produce the work, you can order that the entire work be brought to. Either you want to destroy the work if you feel it's a substandard work, but if it's a standard work, you can take ownership of it. So the Copyright Act empowers you to exercise those rights the minute you've been able to show that indeed you are the author or producer of a particular work. Now, the Copyright Act equally makes some certain limitation with respect to the work. And that is what we call the fair use consideration. Now, understanding when limited use of copyright material is permissible. Now, the Copyright Act, it's not because you wrote a script and all of that, and you now say, oh, because of this, even if you are going to make commentaries or make news publications or make criticism, or they're going to say or use some level of the work for respect to educational purposes, you will not say, no, they can't use it. No, there are some limitations and what the Copyright Act calls the fair use doctrine. Now, the fair use doctrine of fair dealing is to the extent that members of the public for which this particular work has been done equally enjoy some level of rights to say that, oh, if they want to report news that oh, so and so person produced a work and this is the title of the work and the work wears this, then it's news reporting. For such instances, it should not fall under an infringement with respect to the rights of the author. Hello, can everyone hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, I
Emmanuel, we
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Hello, if you can. You can hear me, okay?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to be sure that you can hear me. Now, one other thing that is very important with respect to the practical tip that we're talking about is the difference between an expression and an idea. Now, copyright does not protect an idea. So if someone says, oh, I have this thing in mind, though, and somebody else now produced the work, you have it in your mind. It's not protected by copyright. What copyright protects is an expression of an idea in a tangible form that can be seen, perceived, or that can be detected by use of a technological device or visual instrument. So you can't say because it is in your mind, then copyright will protect it. Copyright never protects an idea. Copyright is specific. It protects what that has been expressed in tangible and durable form that can be perceived. One thing I usually tell people is, I've seen often a time that when script writers, because they want to do this pitching and be like, oh, I have a script and all of that, they usually will have communications with third parties and sometimes communications with respect to their script. Now, one mistake that sometimes they do is that in having all of these conversations, some of these script writers and screenwriters never usually enter into an agreement with respect to an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, with these persons that they are having communications with respect to their work. And that is dangerous because if any part of that particular work is stolen, it becomes an issue. How do you now prove that you had communications with respect to a particular person and you were the first to have those communications and that particular person went ahead to produce that work? It becomes a very big issue. So one of the safest way for us at the Mr. Agbakuba Legal that we advise our clients, screenwriters and scriptwriters to do is to ensure that they have in place, while having communications and dealings with third parties, NDAs, because it's important that things are documented. So as a script or screenwriters, you must, as much as possible, learn to document the work. So the other thing I'll be talking on today is contractual agreement relevant to scriptwriters. Now, what are the types of contracts that are relevant to script writers? One of such is an option agreement. Now, an option agreement grants a producer or a studio the exclusive right to purchase the script or manuscript for a set period. Now, what simply is an option agreement? It simply is to the extent that you're saying, oh, I've written a script, and the producer is saying, I'm interested in this particular script, but I want to have for a particular period of time, maybe for a period of 6 months, I want to have that exclusive right or option to purchase this particular script, maybe because I'm interested, but I don't have the finance yet. I'm interested, but I don't have the right cast or crew members. I'm interested, but there are some certain considerations that I actually need to take into consideration before I move forward. Now, what it does for you as a script writer is that the option agreement makes provision of certain terms and say, oh, so I'll give you the first rights to purchase within this limited period of time, but you're going to pay me this money because you're not making me to market this particular script for this particular period of time because you want to exercise your right of option. And equally, if it does not pull through after that specific period of time, you have made money, you can equally sell that particular work to another producer or another person that is interested in that particular work. Now, there's equally the work for hire agreement. Now, what I usually call a work for hire agreement, I call it the writer's agreement. Simply, I'll just say the writer's agreement. Now, the reason why I would say it's the writer's agreement is because once you are engaged by a producer or a production company, the first thing, of course, consideration is for you to know, oh, what is expected of me? And if you really want to know what is expected of you, it means you need to have a writer's agreement in place that will stipulate your obligation. For example, they can tell you that, oh, within this period of time, we need so and so number of scripts. Within this period of time, this is the period of turnovers we require from you. Oh, this is the amount we are going to pay you for the particular work that we have engaged you for. And equally, they will state under the intellectual property part of it and say, oh, for every of this work that has been done, that I have, that the copyrights with respect to that work is transferred to the producer. So you transfer sometimes, often a time, which is what is obtainable in this particular industry, is that the writers usually will transfer their copyright with respect to the intellectual property work that they have created in that particular script to the producer. That is what enables the producer to be able to engage other parties and equally do the marketing, do their production, and equally exercises those rights of merchandising and all of that they need with respect to that particular work to be able to market their movies, market their stories, sell their book, and all of those. So those considerations are very important with respect to the work for hire agreement, which I equally call the writer's agreement. Now, it specifies that the work created belongs to the hiring part. That's the reason why it's called the work for hire agreement, the writer's agreement, that, oh, this particular work, you've been hired to do this work as an author, but it belongs, we should equally take into consideration its collaboration agreement. Now, what is collaboration? Collaboration simply is, oh, you have a co-writer, you need to write with other persons and all of that. So you are collaborating with one or two authors to produce a particular script. So in such circumstances, it is important to have in place a collaboration agreement that clarifies the roles, the contributions, ownership rights of the multiple authors or collaborators with respect to that specific script or work of authorship. So it is very important that you have a collaboration agreement that is clear in terms. That is clear in terms. I tell people that agreements are very important because it's with agreements that a lot of issues can be solved without necessarily you having to mitigate on them. If the agreements are clear, once another party say, no, this is not what I agree to pay, you just refer to the paragraph of your agreement and say, oh, paragraph this of our agreement stated that this is the amount you're going to pay with respect to this particular script. And on this, we agree that I will have this number of weeks or this number of months to produce a first script. So if you put unnecessary pressure on me, I'm still within the time frame within which I have agreed with you to produce the script. So it clears a lot of unnecessary bad issues and it's really removed all this bad blood. I'm like, oh, no, and all of that. So you're clear with respect to the terms for which you have been engaged. Then there is something known as a licensing agreement. Now, a licensing agreement allows other parties to use specific rights of the work while retaining ownership. It allows other parties to be able to use specific parts of the work while you are also able to retain ownership. I think that those are some of the agreements that we talked about that is needed by a scriptwriter, but just to add for them. There's something also known as the representative agreement. I don't know if some persons might have heard of that, but there's something known as a representative agreement. And what simply a representative agreement does, as the name implies, is is that when there's an agreement between an agent or a manager and their client, the agreement allows the representative to act on behalf of a client in very specific and on definite compensated agreement. So the reason why you're saying you want to have a representative, like, oh, there are some certain things that I cannot really do. I need somebody to be able to negotiate some of these things on my behalf. I need somebody to be able to do some of those things. And you are not available. You can appoint a representative that will enter some certain agreement on your behalf. So you create an agency relationship that binds you with respect to those particular contracts. Then there's something also that I've seen in this particular field over time, and that is the social release form. For some producers, they will tell you that if you want to submit a script, that you should submit that particular script alongside a submission release form. Now, what they are saying is that, oh, you want to submit your script, I agree, but if I'm going to use any particular part of this script, I want to avoid issues. So come along and sign a submission release form and give me the right to be able to take any part of this particular script and use and alter. And I will not be held accountable, or I will not be liable with respect to copyright-related issues. So it is important that you have these agreements whenever you want to, you're writing a script for engage people as representative for yourself. Now, key considerations. The reason why we call them key considerations because these are issues that come often in time, and we have had to go to court, and sometimes we have had to go to on arbitration, because if your agreement contains an arbitration clause, it means that with respect to dispute arising for those specific transactions, we have to explore either mediation or arbitration, depending on what your agreement have stipulated. Now, some of these key considerations is payments and royalty. It is very important that you ensure clarity on payment structure. Is it upfront fees? Will you be entitled to royalties and residual fees and all of that? You need to know as a writer that, oh, from this particular work that I've created, if this work will be shown on cinema, if this work is going to be shown or marketed by way of DVDs, if this work is going to be streamed, will I be entitled to royalties from the sales of this particular work? It is important. And it's equally important if it's a one-off fees and just, oh, this is the only thing you are entitled to. And it means you're doing this work for me, I'm paying you one-off fees. So it is very, because that's where issues usually come up from. People will like, no, this is not what we agree. This is not the fee you're supposed to pay me. You're supposed to pay me this. I'm entitled to royalty. Look at our agreement and all of that. So once the agreements have it, it clears issues. So you can enforce your agreement because parties are bound by their agreement. And as lawyers, what we tell people is that we work on evidence. If I want to go to court for you, if I want to demand specific performance with respect to a specific transaction, I must be able to determine from the agreement or from your conversation with another party that there are specific terms with respect to what parties have agreed to specifically do. So it is important that it is clearly written. As a scriptwriter, one thing that persons would have told you is that documentation is important. Documentation is important. You should not for any reason play with it. Another thing that is important, that is a key consideration, is credits and attributions. Now, establishing how authors will be credited in the final production or publication is important. Are you entitled to screen credits? You need to state it. Like in your agreement, it should be there that you're entitled to screen credit. If they say you're not entitled to screen credit, they can equally say, oh, sorry, you're not entitled to screen credit. So it clears a lot of issues. Your moral right, yes, it resides in you, but at the same time, they can say, oh, you don't have rights to exercise any of this with respect to us. And one other thing that I tell people is, it's not for you to just say, oh, this is the agreement, I will just sign. You need a lawyer to review your agreement for you. It's important. You need a lawyer to review your agreement for you. It is not enough to just say, if there are lawyers that prepare the agreement and they don't understand the terms, get someone that understands the terms. And that's where a legal representation or a lawyer comes in, a lawyer that understands the terms. That understand the terms. So it is very important. It is very important that you have a lawyer that understands those terms. Okay, so the next thing that is equally important is on termination provision. It is important that parties state how the contract will be terminated. If you have been engaged by a third party, or if you're collaborating with another party, state how will this contract be terminated. Because it is very important, the conditions for which the contract will be terminated and the consequences thereof with respect to termination. So if you terminate, does it mean that all obligation and rights ceases? What about those particular things that are performed before the termination? Am I entitled to quantum and root basics? What is my entitlement with respect to all of those things that I've done already? Fees that have not been paid, and now the contract has been terminated. Can I still claim for it? So the termination clause how do I
Manuel, are you still there? Manuel? I think we lost Emmanuel for a second. Most definitely be his network. Okay, just logged out and he's probably trying to log in right back in. Just a second. So let me just step in for Emmanuel for the meantime as he comes back in. So it's going next is talking about the negotiation tips when it comes to contract management, especially for screenwriters and scriptwriters. So major things that you have to obviously pay attention to when you're negotiating your contract. So for instance, as a screenwriter or as a scriptwriter, you've been engaged by probably a production company or probably a filmmaker, an executive producer or a producer. What are the major things that should be in your agreement, in your contract before you sign them? And these are mostly things that you call industry standards. You have to obviously talk about your royalties. How much do you get paid for writing? How many scripts? What are the major pages of the script? Do you to the major modalities of the writer's workshop? How much are you paid? What are the credits? Your open credits, your closest credits. And that's one of the major things that he said, that you always need to consult a legal counsel, always seek legal support when you have to sign this kind of agreement. Because as a matter of fact, a lot of professionals, no doubt, they are not always aware of the legal elements and the legal rudiments when it comes to this kind of agreement, especially in the legal industry. So that's another thing that we have here, that you have to seek legal counsel, especially an entertainment lawyer or entertainment law firm like Olisa Agbakoba Legal, to clarify your rights. What are the rights that I have to this particular agreement, this particular arrangement? What do I get to do? What do I not get to do? So moving on, the other parts of this presentation is on intellectual property, ownership, and rights. So first off is the ownership issues. There are various kinds of ownership, especially when it comes to authorship. There's the sole authorship, that is, I actually wrote this particular book, I wrote this particular script, and there's joint authorship when you obviously have to work with one or two other authors. There's the assignment and there's the licensing. The assignment is more or less about you write a particular script and you sell it off. You sell it off to probably a musician. If you write a lyric, if you write a script, you could sell it off outrightly and completely to a filmmaker, an executive producer, a film production company, or licensing. Licensing is more or less like you're not selling everything off. You're selling some part of it and you're retaining some part. You're selling some part of it, but you also still get credit or some sort of royalty as time goes on. and as your script is being used. For assignment, you're just selling everything off and you do not get anything. Even if they get to use the script for 10 books or probably 10 films, you do not get anything back because you've obviously outrightly sold all the complete rights that you have to the executive producer or to the filmmaker. But when it comes to licensing, you know, most of the time, licensing are always renewable. So if you license them to use a script to produce a movie or a film for like 10 years, after 10 years, they have to come to you again to license them or to renew their license for another period of time or for another subject matter or for another project. Then we also talk about the moral rights. These are more or less the rights or the integral rights or the author's rights when it comes to the script. And then we have derivative rights. Derivative rights only comes for derivative works. For example, you have a franchise. A major franchise is Fast and Furious. There's always a script writer that writes scripts for Fast and Furious 1, Fast and Furious 2, Fast and Furious 3, as it goes on. Or probably another major example is a series. So you write a series for season 1, and the season 1 goes to probably after 2 years, it goes to Netflix. After 3 years, it goes to Prime. So if it goes to Prime, these are things that actually happens in the future, and you have to be remunerated and you have to be given royalties or some sort of monetary compensation, because from the script that you wrote from season 1, they are using the modalities of your script for another season 2. They're using the modalities of your script to put it in flight. They're using the modalities of the script to put the film in cinemas, to put the films in other streaming platforms such as Netflix, such as other major Netflix related angles that we have out there. And another subtopic is protecting your intellectual property, which is definitely outrightly one of the most significant protective rights that you have as a professional working in this particular kind of industry. You always have to protect your intellectual property. The script that you're writing or you're working alongside with other authors for is your intellectual property. Because all the storyteller has to do sometimes is more or less to tell you a story, and you have to put scripts. Put what should this person say, what should this other person say, how do they say it, when do they say it. So the major work or the foundation of any movie you see out there is the script, and the script outrightly is the intellectual property. So as a screenwriter or as a scriptwriter, you have to protect your intellectual property. And one of the major ways you protect your intellectual property, as a man of my colleagues has earlier said, is you have to keep records. Always keep records of it, no matter how small or how tiny or how not numerous the pages of your script is. Always keep record of it. Always copyright it. And even if there are like major terms or major logos in the script, always trademark this the content of the script. And moving on, we have a subtopic on defamation and privacy. We have a section on defamation and privacy concerns, especially when it comes to writing scripts. It's always, even more or less, not exactly, it's obviously a legal consideration, but at the same time, it is always also a moral consideration. When it comes to defamation, it's always advisable. Any professional will always morally advise you, maybe not legal advise you, but morally advise you not to obviously defame. Anything you put in your script should be authentic. Anything you put in your script, if you need to defame someone, obviously you shouldn't. But if you need to put something that is probably not exactly true in your script, always make sure the component of the script is fictional. So from the onset, everyone knows that this is a fiction. There's a major safeguard writers or filmmakers always use when it comes to various kinds of films. At the beginning of the film, there's always this notice or this disclaimer that this is a fiction. Any scene you see or any character name or any particular title or tags that you see in this movie is just for fictional purpose. We do not mean to actually disrespect anyone. We do not mean to defame anyone. And that's actually allowed by law. So once you put it before the movie starts or before the film starts that this is not meant to defame anyone, you're not yet to actually pirate any particular instances or any particular components in the film, that's like a major safeguard. So those are part of the things that we always advise our screenwriters and our target audience. And another major thing you have to do is when it comes to privacy, people obviously have their personal lives and their secretive lives. So if you actually know a particular thing about someone, a particular character and you want to imbibe it into your fiction, it is always preferable that you seek the consent of that particular person. Let the person actually consent to using this particular original story of their life to be embedded in your script, because it will obviously not be fair and it will be obviously illegal when someone actually sees something that actually is particular about them, something passionate about them, view life as a matter of fact, something trackable, and they can prove that this story that you're putting online is about me. This story that you're writing is about me. And I can prove it that every single thing, the component of your script is just about me. Once they can obviously prove that it is you obviously intriguing in their privacy, and they can definitely sue you for that. So we always morally advise our clients, do not do this. Respect people's privacy, obviously, but if you have to do something that will more or less intrigue into their privacy, always seek their consent. Always seek consent, always get people's permission before you use their full original names, before you use their legal names. For instance, you get a movie out there and you're writing a script and the name of your major character or your main character in a script is, for example, Tony Elumelu. Tony Elumelu is a legal name of a person. Before you use that kind of thing, you have to obviously seek his consent. You cannot come when it comes to law and say, oh, it is not exactly him. You just thought you could use any name. You cannot use anybody's legal name. Tony Elumelu is obviously a legal name. Dr. Olisa Agbakoba LCN is a legal name. So a book cannot come on now, or a film, and then the major character or the main character in the script is Tony Elumelu. Tony Elumelu can actually sue you for infringing into his privacy. So that's just a major example. And then moving on, the conclusion, just to wrap up, Emmanuel and I have spoken about the legal protection when it comes to screenwriters, legal consideration when it comes to script writers. Major things we spoke about is the copywriting, protecting your materials. You have to document your materials. Obviously, you have to seek the legal counsel, legal support, or legal coverage from the onset before you actually even start writing scripts. When somebody has engaged you to write a script for them or to write a screenplay for them, always seek legal counsel so that they can draft some sort of agreements that will protect your intellectual property, an agreement that will protect your interest and most especially your materials, especially derivative materials, so that as time goes on, you're always paid for everything that you do. Because like I've always said, the script is a foundation of a film, just as the lyrics is the foundation of a song. So this has come to the end of Emmanuel's section. And just to wrap it up, I do not know if anybody has a question for Emmanuel or for me. Okay, so we have a question here, just to go straight to the questions and answers section. We have a question here first from May. May asks, can I make a request for the slides as a guide? Yes, you can. We'll send the slides, all the slides that have been used from the beginning of the section, day one, yesterday, today. We'll send it to every participant. Okay. And Ramaz asks, hi, Emmanuel. There is a saying that there is nothing new under the sun, and the same seems to hold true for stories. Many writers find inspiration in existing works, reworking and adding their own perspective, their own creative twist to make them unique. My question is, does this approach ever cross the line into copywriting violation? On a separate note, I'm curious, in your opinion, which genre of stories need legal protection, real life experience, or fictional creations? Okay, to answer this question, which genre of stories need legal protection, real life experience, or fictional creation? Trust me, every work you do need legal protection, whether it's real life, or imaginary, is fake, or autobiography, biography, everyone needs legal protection. Because trust me, even if it is your original life story, probably your own autobiography, you still need to register the script. Because even though it is an original coming from you, emanating from you, somebody will likely see it and want to use like a line of your script or like 2 pages of your script. And if they use it without actually consulting with you, they're infringing into your copyright because it is coming first from you. So going first to your first question about there's literally nothing new under the sun. Actually, I actually agree with you that there's nothing new under the sun. But the thing is that there's always this idea going through everybody's minds, especially Nigerians. You realize everybody's accurately thinking the exact same thing. But what matters is, who is the first person to actually put an action to what they are thinking? That's what counts. So that's one of the major things Emmanuel said at the beginning, that copyright does not protect ideas, it protects expressions. So you do not get to come over to law and say that, okay, you had an idea of this thing. You already seen that this thing is up and down, it's already on television, it's already on script. No, that will not count. You have an idea, everybody has an idea. The law does not protect what is in your head because nobody knows, only you know. The only thing we can actually be definite about or we can track is what we see, your expression, because it obviously starts from your idea and the next stage is your expression. So you have to put an action to the idea that you have, the ideation stage, and you put it into an expression to something that we can track, something definite that we can see. And mostly it's always a material. I have an idea that, okay, I want to write a script. This is what I have in my head. And I obviously cannot copyright that or trademark it. There's no legal protection for what I have in my head. Legal protection comes to what I put down. So I agree with you when you say there's not anyone that is wrong. Yes, everybody has one idea or the other. But what we can track down, what we can see is the material that the law protects, not the idea. So thank you for that. Another question, anonymous attendee, is email evidence now acceptable in Nigerian court? Yes, email evidence acceptable, falls under electronic evidence. So that's just a straightforward question and straightforward answer. So your answer is yes, and it's under electronic evidence, or it's electronic communication. Another thing, another question somebody asks is there a union for screenwriters or script writers? At the moment, I do not know of any, although I stand corrected. I do not know of any, like I said, emphasis on I stand corrected. But then even if there isn't any at the moment, it's always advisable, professionally advisable under the coverage of this workshop that script writers and screenwriters should probably come together to form a union and create an association. Everything literally these days have association. You have association of arbitrators, you have everything literally as an association, because from association you can get various benefits such as resources, you get one voice. So it's more or less advisable, and we're advising it under the coverage of this workshop that script writers out there, screenwriters out there, manuscript writers out there, create and form an association to create more or less like a legal umbrella for you. So I don't know if there's any other question. Seems there isn't any question for this legal stage, this legal consideration for screenwriters and scriptwriters. So I guess we have come to the end. We've come to the end of the section on Emmanuel's section, as a matter of fact, on legal consideration for scriptwriters and screenwriters. And I want to call on Adejoje, my colleague, for the next section of the. And just to say, for networking's sake, the chat box is obviously open. So you feel free to put down your Instagram handles, your LinkedIn handles for anyone to connect. It's a great platform for you to connect with like-minds, your fellow film producers, film marketers or filmmakers, script writers. So just drop your handles or your contact details on the chat box, and everyone will do well to connect with you. Adi.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sheil, for jumping in last minute. I'm sure Emmanuel's network issue has not been sorted out yet. And to all our attendees, thank you so much for staying and for staying with us. I trust that you enjoyed the sessions from yesterday and also from today. We have come to the end of Between the Lines, a professional career workshop for screenwriters and scriptwriters. It has been an incredible journey. As we wrap up our sessions, we would like to once again express our sincere gratitude to Olisagba Legal for allowing us to host this valuable opportunity for our participants here. Once again, OAL is a leading law firm in Nigeria. We are committed to supporting creative community. We are proud to have played a part in empowering screenwriters and scriptwriters with knowledge and tools they'll need to excel in their craft. We would like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our exceptional speakers, Mr. Ayodele Elegba, who provided a masterclass in storyboarding and animatics yesterday, which was such an insightful session. And Mr. Xavier Igoroje for his expertise and how he dissected character design and development. He gave us a great understanding and launched us into understanding, crafting believable and memorable characters. We thank Mrs. Nicole Asinogu. Thank you so much for, in spite of your really tight schedule, coming up today and taking out time to listen to us and answer different questions. You shared valuable insights on how to tell a compelling story, and for providing practical tools and techniques for crafting narratives that resonate. Thank you to Mr. Emmanuel Aguerario for providing a comprehensive overview, even though his session was cut short. Thank you to Mr. Sheon Akinade for stepping in to further enlighten our participants on having knowledge on how to navigate the industry effectively and legally. So thank you so much. Your contributions are invaluable. Your insights have inspired all of us, including myself. Thank you so much. We are grateful to all of our participants that stayed, that came. We are truly inspired by your dedication, your enthusiasm, and your eagerness to learn. Thank you for those interesting questions. Thank you for paying attention to our speakers who took out time from their busy schedule. Thank you for asking questions that were thought-probing and insightful as well. So we hope that our workshop has provided you with as much inspiration and tools you would need to navigate your journey and taking yourself to the next level, both career-wise and personally. So we bid you farewell. We'll encourage you to continue to develop your craft, pursue your passion, and remember that here we created magic today and yesterday, 10th of July 2024. We look forward to seeing you at any of our other website webinars or seminars that we may put together from the Entertainment Practice Group at Olisa Agbakoba. Once again, I'm Adedoja Laoye. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me and all of our ramblings and our interesting discussions as well. I hope you have an amazing day going forward. Thank you very much. Oh, yes. So you can send, if you have an inquiry or if you have anything to let us know or reach out to us, please send an email to set@oal.law to connect with us. Our website is olisagbakoba at oal.law. Yes, so just search for us on for our website and you can send an email to us. So thank you very much and have a nice day. Thank you, Sheon. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Ola, behind the scenes. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our attendees. Have a nice day. Bye.